Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Microsoft Flight Simulator news and updates. We've got a few pieces of information for you guys, so stick around. If you are interested in acquiring any of my Overkills tutorial guides for Microsoft Flight Simulator, please consider joining me on Patreon. Patreon subscribers level tier 2 and above have access to all of my guides, as well as any future updates and future guides that will be coming down the road. Link to Patreon can be found in the description below. First, we have a couple of updates from PMDG. The PMDG 737 update finally released, which is super awesome. They did a really great job at bringing a bunch of fixes and adjustments to the aircraft, as well as adding the much-awaited pop-up displays. You can now click on the display, and that will actually bring it out into a 2D view, which makes it very, very nice for exporting to other monitors. Or if you have a very large, display screen, it makes it easier to bring it up to a much more easily viewable source. It's really, really handy. Those pop-up displays are really a big deal, especially if you're someone who has, like I said, interest in possibly creating a custom cockpit. Now, the changelog is actually quite extensive. They really, like I said, did a fantastic job of making the update, well, what we would expect from an update of the aircraft. It wasn't any small item. They didn't just throw out a couple of little items and tidbits to, try to call it an update. PMDG really went above and beyond. I mean, you guys can see we are still scrolling through the changelog, and I highly recommend that you guys check this out. Be sure to launch your PMDG Operations Center in order to acquire the update prior to launching Microsoft Flight Simulator. There's also been a few liveries that have been updated as well, so be sure to check your livery updates in the PMDG Operating Center at the same time while you're there. Really, really proud of PMDG's work. They always do fantastic, and it's really nice to see this kind of detail put into these updates. Continuing with PMDG for a moment, we have news on the 737-600. This is the smallest of the 737 series that is coming to Microsoft Flight Simulator. This aircraft is being projected at approximately $50 US. However, the beta is being reported as being 7 to 9 days late. This was posted as of yesterday, June the 4th. So we can expect a little bit of delay coming from the 600 series. But remember, early on when we first started getting the release schedule, Robert did make it very clear, and it's announced once again in this article here on FS Elite, that does not mean that the 800 series or the 900 series are going to be delayed, as the teams are independent from each other. So that's really awesome. Sad to hear about the 600, but again, just like with the 737-700, I would much rather see them iron everything out, make sure the product is truly ready to be delivered to the Microsoft Flight Simulator community prior to its release. I don't know if I will personally be picking this up. As for me, I think the biggest issue there is that from the cockpit experience, I feel like the 600 series is going to be similar to the 700 series. Now I'm not referring to displays or anything like that or overall cockpit layout. I'm just referring to flying a 737 versus flying a different 737. And from my standpoint, it doesn't justify the $50 US. So I think it really comes down to, have you already purchased a 737? Do you want the entire fleet, or is there specific items from each aircraft that you're looking for? Now, if you haven't purchased any of the aircraft, I do believe the 600 series is a much older aircraft and operates on a different tile or cockpit tile, meaning that I don't think it has all of the glass cockpit displays that come with the 700 series. I'd have to do some research to confirm that, so I do recommend that you guys do the same. Make sure you dive into the details on the 600 and determine if that's something that you're going to want to have in your hangar. Now, again, this is PMDG we're talking about, so the aircraft's still going to be absolutely phenomenal. It just really, like I said, comes down to what are you looking at in regard to the aircraft. They are also working on the lateral and vertical path module that is being prepped and tested within Microsoft Flight Simulator very soon. Now, the reason why this was put on delay is Robert goes on to say that they felt that Asobo should wait, or it should be put on the sideline, until Asobo provides the debugging tools as listed here in the article. But it sounds like the team just said, you know what, we're going to go after it and make it happen, and that's really awesome to hear. These guys are just really on top of it. I really am looking forward to it. The lateral and vertical path module, to my understanding, is a custom system, basically changing the way the aircraft navigates through the sky, meaning it's the flight model performance, the way it turns, the way it's going to climb. All of that is going to be on a custom level, and therefore further enhancing the aircraft to a more realistic behavior. If my understanding of this is correct, I've done a little bit of reading on it, and I hope that I extrapolated the correct amount of information from that. But super excited for this, because that could really change everything. Again, I totally understand why a lot of these companies are moving to custom flight models. And no, I'm actually not knocking Microsoft Flight Simulator or not flight models, excuse me, but how do I put this? Not model, but yeah, let's stick it with modules. I understand why they're going with custom performance inside the sim. I don't know how else to say it. I hope you guys, I'm tongue twisting myself is what I'm doing. But I'm not knocking Microsoft Flight Simulator. Microsoft Flight Simulator, I think I was a little harsh a couple weeks ago. There are certain things that I still stand on, but it really is a good platform, and it really is laying the foundation for all flight simulation moving forward. One of the biggest arguments we have with X-Plane 12, is that, photogrammic scenery, or scenery. You're going to have that now. It has now become a staple. It's now a requirement for flight simulation to have some sort of satellite imagery without having to have thousands and thousands of gigs of satellite tiles saved somewhere on your computer. They really changed the game. But with that being said, that's where I was getting at with, I understand why companies like PMDG and even Phoenix are going to completely custom and independent systems of Microsoft Flight Simulator to manage the way the aircrafts operate and behave. So super excited to see what comes of this, and I hope that that happens very soon. Speaking to Microsoft Flight Simulator and her updates, SimUpdate 10 has been delayed. I know that we're all waiting for that, given a lot of the issues that have come up in the last few weeks. Now, with that being said, I will say that ever since the SimUpdate 9 hotfix, personally, from my standpoint, the simulation experience has gotten significantly better. So they definitely resolved a lot of issues. So I do believe full-heartedly that Asobo is trying to get everything ironed out. I think that some of the priorities should be realigned, in my personal opinion. Maybe not so much on the scenery and the world scenery, and get back to, let's clean up the sim. Let's iron out all these major bugs that have been around for a long time, and even some of the minor ones that are just a nuisance. And then start working on scenery again. But, I get, at the same token, everybody's out to make money, so, I do try to remember that, but it gets difficult in some of these situations. Initially, we did have SimUpdate planned SimUpdate 10 planned for the middle of July, and that was pushed back until August. And it sounds like it is due for late August. So hopefully that means that there are going to be some very significant changes. Now, with that being said, we already know a few of them, being the terrain and weather radar drawing for APIs. Now, that doesn't mean that every aircraft and default aircraft inside the sim is going to have terrain and weather radar. What that means is the API is being developed for third-party developers, meaning that they will now be able to create and integrate their own custom terrain and weather radar operating systems inside of each aircraft. So I don't know if that means that the default aircraft will have it or not. I'm just saying that that's not necessarily a guaranteed. So aircraft, for example, first one pops to head is our beloved TBM 930. That is a default aircraft. That I do not know if when this terrain and weather radar API is created, if that necessarily means that the TBM 930, being a default Asobo aircraft, is going to have that capability. That's going to be, I imagine that's going to come further down the road. I think the idea here is to create the building blocks for it, and then allowing developers to then add that into their aircraft. And I'm assuming that that's going to be probably similar to Asobo as well. They're going to have to later on adjust all of their aircraft to support that API. But we'll see. Dlss, for those of you who don't know, that is a super sampling feature that is available with NVIDIA graphics cards specifically. I know AMD has their own version of it, and I'm kind of curious, because there isn't any mention of AMD compatibility, if that's going to be something that's going to be restricted to AMD cards, or if that is also going to be available to AMD cards as well. I can't remember. AMD, I know, calls it something different. But DLSS allows you to get a much, much higher resolution picture without putting your graphics card through quite as much strain, if you will, and therefore freeing up resources, providing smoother experiences, higher resolutions, more frame rates, less workload on the graphics card. So it'd be kind of cool to see how this all comes out to play. That's a big one. That could absolutely change the FPS experience for many users. DLSS, for example, is extremely valuable to those who maybe are on lower end machines, maybe have a few outdated graphics cards. Now, again, I do believe that there is a limitation on DLSS and what graphics card it supports. I can't remember if that is supported, for example, in the 20 series of graphics card, or if it is limited to the 30 series. However, I do believe it is any of the 30 series graphics card. And again, we'd have to do research. I do recommend everyone sort of, if you're still on a 20 series card from NVIDIA, go out and just double check whether or not that's supported. I can't remember. So anyway, August 23rd is also going to be another big day. We're going to have a couple new aircraft. The famous Flyer 3 and the local Legend 6 are also both due to release on that same day. So that could be very exciting all the way around. At the same token, I really hope that there isn't going to be anything game-breaking that's going to break the famous Flyer or the local Legend on the day of release. Now, I do believe that developers have access to some of these updates information a bit early, but I know, for example, like PMDG ran into some issues shortly, either right before, I think it was, the release of the 737 that was initially planned. It had to be pushed back because of a sim update that broke a ton of things, or broke a few critical things. So I'm not 100% sure what that's going to look like for famous Flyer and local Legend, but it'll still be exciting if all comes well together. So again, August 23rd, Sim Update 10. I know we're all waiting for it. Now, there is also World Update 10 that's supposed to be coming in the middle of July. But as far as the moment goes, we don't have any information as to where. So I'm kind of curious where that's going. The new scenery, like I said, is absolutely nice, and it's very, very wonderful to see. I'm just like everyone else. I like to have that detailed scenery, but it's just, we'll see what it does this time. Crossing your fingers that Asobo has smooth sailing seas here. Next up on the list, Flight Sim Expo is back. I'm super excited for this one. I am going to absolutely plan on making this one. This is going to be 2023 Houston, Texas. Venue details and dates have been revealed. We have some really awesome stuff. I do highly recommend that you guys check out Flight Sim Expo's website. You can just Google Flight Sim Expo and it will pop right up. This time it's going to be at the Lone Star Flight Museum in Houston, Texas. This is the first time, I think every time that I've seen it, it's been either like at a hotel or a resort conference suite. This is going to be awesome. To be in a air museum, I think is going to be totally cool because it's going to further enhance the experience of being there. This is a very beautiful museum. Super excited for this one. I think this is going to be a really, really neat opportunity. I have been to a Flight Sim Expo once when it was in Vegas, and it was a absolutely great time. There are tons of awesome speakers. There's a bunch of hardware and things that you can actually sit down and test and try out. That is actually what made me purchase my TPR rudder pedals from Thrustmaster, is I was actually able to get in there and really see the comparable difference between that and your average market rudder pedals. And the funny thing is that in many aircraft, you're not on the rudder pedals very often. And this is speaking to like, for example, you have like something like the F-16, that has the electronic flight system, right? The Flybywire. You really, there are times that you need to do your coordinated turns, but for the most part, once you're airborne in a fighter, at least, and I bought these when I was still very, very heavy and primarily only DCS World. You're not on them very often, but like, for example, the helicopters, obviously constantly, right? But even then, like once you get forward and moving at a good speed, you more or less fly it like a fighter until you have to slow back down again. And even with that limited use of quote unquote rudder pedals, or the quote unquote being the limited use, I'm jabbering a bit. The rudder pedals were just gold. It was like night and day difference between flying them. And it was Flight Sim Expo that gave me that opportunity to do that. They always have cool flight sticks. Typically you have things from Thrustmaster. You have Virpil, I think, has been there once, if memory serves. You get to see a lot of your favorite YouTubers go out there. This is going to be a really awesome experience. 130,000 square foot museum. That is a big freaking museum. Plenty of space for more than 2,000 attendees, so we will absolutely definitely be one of them. Here's an outside venue, or a picture of the venue. Pretty awesome museum. Pretty awesome. Super excited for this one. Now, they do say right off the bat, don't go booking hotels or anything like that. yet, Flight Sim Expo and their team have always been really good about making sure to get discounts on car rentals, hotels, things like that that are near the area. They do also list the different locations that you can arrive at, everything from intercontinental airport down to local airports. So pretty awesome news. I'm glad to see it's back. I'm glad to see some of our world coming back to normal. And Overkill Simulations will definitely be at this one. So make sure that you guys sign up, because I'd love to meet every one of you guys. I think that would be a ton of fun for all of us to get together. Again, this is going to be Flight Sim Expo 2023, showing up in June of next year. So plenty of time to plan for it. Start putting the pennies in the piggy bank, and I hope to see you guys there. Last up on a list is a little bit an older post. This is back from the 2nd. This is going to be the Aerosoft A330. Get some external texture previews and on track for releasing later this year. This is a larger version of the Airbus A320, if you will. It is a significantly larger version. But the overall cockpit is going to look very familiar to many of you. So if you can fly an A320, if you're comfortable starting it, you should be able to zip around this one pretty quick. Obviously, there's going to be some differences and some performance changes that we're going to have to make in regard to operating the aircraft. But look at that, you even got a camera view from the jump seat back there. Overhead panel, for the most part, again, is going to be the same. There's still going to be some differences. But again, if you're comfortable flying the A320, it won't take a ton of time to get yourself airborne in the A330. This is another aircraft that I'm actually very excited for. Now, we do have the freeware A330 that we're going to be talking about in another video here pretty soon. But you know, it's going to be a race. I don't think the freeware A330 is quite up to par when it comes to a fully developed aircraft yet. And with the A330 already in development, it's going to be payware versus freeware. It's going to come down to it again. But I am fully expecting Aerosoft to take the win on this particular version or particular aircraft. That is, again, not to in any way discredit the developers of the freeware A330. I think they've done a wonderful job, and I hope they continue to kick some serious tail, because if they can really pull it together before the end and pull it together being the aircraft, if they can really start wrapping it up as a solid A330, it's going to give Aerosoft a run for their money. You know, and I think that's sort of what we saw with the Phoenix A320. I know the Phoenix A320, many people purchased it, but there were a lot, even like myself, you know, that come down to and say it is a wonderful plane. I think the Phoenix did a great job with the A320. However, if you're just your average simulator flyer and just love to get in, push the buttons, fly it, do some scenery, feel that cool landing kind of thing, you know, in the takeoffs and landings, if you will, the Flybywire A320, I think, is still the way to go. That's just my personal opinion, but there are definitely improvements that came with the Phoenix A320, but I think Flybywire still takes the hand of the basket because it's free. And I think you're going to run into a similar situation here with the A330, depending on how quickly the freeware A330 continues to develop. They're constantly making changes. It's getting updated very quickly, so I'm super excited to see that competition. I think the ultimate competition in flight simulation is freeware versus payware. If you can get a solid freeware team that's really pounding it out and really fighting hard to make a super detailed aircraft, it's going to give these payware companies incentive and an almost requirement to really push the envelope of their payware aircraft in order to meet the expectation of the flight simulation community. We've seen other developers who try to throw crap out in the sky, and you know, I'm sure you guys can Captain think about what I'm trying to who I'm trying to label out there. And you get some freeware guys who can pull up the same thing and make it 400 times better with a cockpit and all that good stuff. I mean, you know, this is fantastic. I love that competition. And it really shows in a lot of these developers' work. And again, when you're battling a developer like Aerosoft, who has a great reputation, they do wonderful work. I don't think I've ever had a complaint about an Aerosoft product. They are badasses. You know, they're right up there with PMDG when it comes to their dedication. Same thing with Just Flight. You know, you've got some real heavy hitters. You know, the Got Gravel team, the Got Friends, you know, if you will, or Got Gravel and the Got Friends team, I should say. It's just I love seeing this. And I mean, look at these exterior textures as I've been scrolling through the Aerosoft A330. They're beautiful. You can tell they're absolutely custom. There's a ton of detail being put into it, everything from wear and tear on certain parts to yet maintaining a clean aircraft as we would expect to see in the fleet. You guys know I've commented many times on things like landing gears, how landing gears and tires tend to get overlooked. you know, and put on the back burner, and we're just absolutely not seeing that here. And I can't wait to see it, man. I can't wait to see it. This aircraft, no ands, if, or buts about it. I will definitely be buying this aircraft. Definitely be picking it up. Even if the freeware is a badass version, I'll be picking this one up as well, just for comparison purposes. The A330 is a much larger aircraft than the A320, so really where this one's going to drive to is you're going to have longer range, and you're going to have a much larger aircraft. And there is a difference, like even from a simulation standpoint, there's a big difference in flying the big monster aircraft versus the more smaller, compact A320s, 737s, right? You know, you get a different feeling even in simulation. So super excited to see this one. Well, my friends, I know I sort of jabbered on a little bit on that one, and I do apologize for that. I got on a couple tangents. I am very passionate about some of these things, and today's news updates really hit it on the money with quite a few of those. So I do apologize for my ramble on, guys, but that is going to bring today's episodes of news updates to an end. I hope you are all doing very well and have had a great and relaxing weekend. As always, stay safe and healthy, and I'll see you guys in the next one.